There's a few exciting gaming news stories we have to talk about today, starting with the reason Pokemon fans are extremely hyped for this Sunday, February 27th, as there is officially a Pokemon Presents scheduled and taking place, and we have to talk about what kind of announcements we may see here. Then we also have to cover a surprise company acquisition that Nintendo rarely does but has officially done now with a long-term partner, and a big talking point for today's video has to do with reports that suggest that Sony is gearing up to launch their own Nintendo Switch Online and Xbox Game Pass competitor, and we have to have a broader discussion of what this means for the future of the Nintendo Switch platform as a whole. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, we got a few different stories to tackle today, and we have to kick it off with a discussion around the latest announcement from the Pokemon Company that does indeed confirm that this Sunday, February 27th, we can expect a Pokemon Presents to take place, and this will be roughly a 14-minute long event according to the Pokemon Company themselves. It will be taking place at 9 a.m. Eastern time or 8 a.m. Central, and I believe that's like 6 a.m. Pacific time, so you can go look up where it's going to take place for you, but this is going to be a very early start time for some of the fans out there, as I personally don't like to wake up that early, but I will for this event, as I'm very hyped to see what they will be unveiling here, because while it may not be filled entirely with giant announcements, there's definitely some rather large projects that could come from this. As you know, there's all of the rumors and speculation that suggest that Detective Pikachu 2 is in the works, and it's continuing to be in the works, and so maybe they feature or unveil something like that at this event. I think a pretty likely one, and hopefully one that we do see announced, is Legends Arceus DLC, as clearly this game is a massive success, and while it did just recently launch, and it may be a little bit too soon to unveil the DLC, to be fair, I do still think there's a solid shot that we could get some kind of announcement, and I sure hope that that's what they're going to give us at some point in this event, because I have just, if you haven't been around on the channel, I mean, Legends Arceus is literally the most fun I've had with a Pokemon game in years, if not ever, period. I literally am in love with this game, and I strongly believe that this one deserves a chance for maybe any Pokemon fans that kind of got bored with the traditional formula over the years, as I found myself just wanting something different at the end of the day, and Legends Arceus delivered that on all fronts. I also think it lays a great foundation for future Pokemon games that could potentially adapt and adopt this style and bring it forward even to a further level of immersion and excitement. So I think this is a great foundation for a potential future formula for Pokemon. Then you also have to expect the fact that there's two big announcements that could come out of this that are by no means guaranteed, but it could be featured here, and that is either a Pokemon Gen 9 announcement, maybe even in something like a traditional formula, more like continuing on with what Sword and Shield did, because we don't know if Pokemon's going to just stick to this Legends format or if this is going to be its own side series of games. So it could very easily be another traditional mainline Pokemon series installment announcement, and it's Gen 9. Now, there's also a lot of other people saying that it's too soon for Gen 9 and we may not get that announcement, and in turn it may be something like Let's Go Johto or Gold and Silver Let's Go, like whatever you want to call them. I couldn't be more hyped for that if that is the case, because I would like to see them continue and evolve some of the Let's Go mechanics, as I would like to see different options included in that weren't in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. But I had a lot of fun with that game, and it felt very refreshing. And I love all of the Pokemon being in the overworld and choosing who you encounter as opposed to the random encounters in the grass. Like, they did a lot of things right in the Let's Go formula, in my opinion, and I would love to see the Gold and Silver games come back in that form factor. So while we may not get all of that stuff or any of that stuff, I definitely think there's at least going to be one or two very major announcements, and if you personally are a Pokemon fan, you will want to make sure you catch this event when it airs on Sunday, February 27th. So please let me know in the comments down below what you personally are expecting for this event, what your personal predictions are, and what your most hype Pokemon announcements would be if we do see them happen on this Sunday. Now, the next story we're talking about today has to do with a very frequently covered topic in the year of 2022 so far, and that has to do with gaming companies acquiring other gaming companies, as of course we've had the major acquisition announcements from Microsoft around purchasing Activision Blizzard. We then had Sony intend to purchase Bungie. All of this stuff has been going on, even Take-Two Interactive acquiring Zynga. Like, there's been some record deals, and in true Nintendo fashion, as opposed to responding and buying like somebody like a Capcom or a Sega Sega or some giant names out there that they could potentially acquire, Platinum Games even potentially shopping around for somebody to buy them, Nintendo chose to actually acquire a partner they have been working with for over 40 years, and one that is actually based out of their Kyoto, Japan headquarters, which is a very funny fact. But to get on the same page with all the information that's been unveiled to us so far, I do want to quickly hop over to VGC and read through an article together, then have a discussion about what this really means for Nintendo's future as we talk about potential other companies that they could acquire going forward. Nintendo continues its development expansion with acquisitions of longtime partner SRD. The deal is the latest step in Nintendo's plan to expand its internal development capabilities. Nintendo has acquired its long-established development partner SRD Co. Ltd. SRD is a developer comprised of around 140 employees that, while technically independent before now, has worked exclusively on first-party Nintendo software for 40 years and operates close to Nintendo's Kyoto, Japan HQ. SRD was founded in 1979 and has worked on games as far back as the original Donkey Kong and contributed to virtually every major Nintendo franchises, including Mario, Zelda, and Animal Crossing. Most recently, the company worked on Game Builder Garage, Ring Fit Adventure, and 1-2 Switch. In a statement published on Thursday, Nintendo said that SRD would serve to strengthen the management base of SRD and secure the availability of software development resources for Nintendo, in addition to improving the efficiency of its internal development. The acquisition is expected to close on April 1st, 2022, pending approval. Nintendo is currently enacting a plan to expand its internal development capabilities in Japan. So of course, Nintendo is very much a company known for doing their own thing regardless of what's going on in the industry. Like, they don't look to their left and their right and see what the competition's doing. They just keep their head down and keep focused on what their actual plan is, and they try to see it through. And of course, I don't think this is a direct response in any means to the Microsoft acquisitions and the Sony acquisitions that are being heavily talked about right now, but rather probably a necessary step in their longer term plan, as Nintendo has stated in numerous investors meetings that they want people with their company DNA first, and they want to expand their own internal studios as opposed to shopping outside for people with essentially different mentalities on how the company is run. That's just how Nintendo is and how they want to continue to operate. And while this is an interesting announcement, like, maybe there is something that sparked this, it's most likely somebody shopping around for SRD. Maybe somebody offered them a acquisition offer to come on board with a Sony or with a Microsoft, or even just with somebody else that's a Japan-based studio. Like, that could have very well happened, as Nintendo has made it clear that they would always step in to essentially buy a studio before someone else does, if that is necessary in their eyes. So that could be the reason for this, or this could just be something that Nintendo has been planning all along, and this is just a incremental step. Now, whether or not we'll see them do major other company acquisitions, I think it's pretty unlikely. I would like to see them maybe buy somebody like a Platinum Games, even some bigger names like Capcom, but that is very unlike Nintendo to do. And I don't think that, unless if somebody was going to get swooped up by a Sony or Microsoft or another big gaming giant, I don't necessarily think that Nintendo will throw around that kind of money to bring people into their first party umbrella, but rather have a lot of close exclusive relationships, or even just relationships where they have a lot of games developed for their platform, but not necessarily only for their platform. So it'll be interesting to see where Nintendo goes from here with all of this, but I don't think that this is anything that will really impact their business as usual format. And if anything, it's probably just a step to expand this SRD team to be able to work on more projects under the Nintendo Co. umbrella. So I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below what your personal thoughts on speculation is around Nintendo and acquisition strategies, and whether or not you think we'll see them acquire anybody else along the way in the year of 2022. Now, the last story we're talking about today has to do with Sony, the PS5, and their ongoing plans that are being reported upon to essentially enter the gaming subscription market and become a true-up competitor with Nintendo Switch Online and Xbox Game Pass. And while these services are in their core very different in some ways, they are also very similar in the tactical aspect of trying to secure predictable revenue month in and month out from their subscriber base. And we are starting to see the tiers implemented, where instead of just paying a $50 or $60 a year annual price to have access to things like online play, and maybe you get a few bonus games given to you here or there for signing up for that, these services are starting to morph into multiple tiered services that you can essentially pay more for more features. We of course most recently saw this from Nintendo with the expansion pack, and while Game Pass continues to hold true at just one tier of $15 a month, it is starting to create a very interesting conversation around the future of the gaming landscape and subscription services as a whole. So to kick off this conversation, I do want to quickly hop back to VGC to have a quick read through their article where we have a notable insider claiming that we are right around the corner from these plans being announced, and then also have a broader discussion on the back end of this on how this could ultimately start really the subscription wars between the major companies being Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo going forward, and why Sony's strategy with the subscription service may be a little bit more similar to Nintendo Switch Online than even Game Pass is. So let's quickly read through this article together. Classic games will reportedly be a major part of PlayStation's Game Pass rival. Journalist claims PlayStation's Project Spartacus is pretty close to launching. PlayStation's upcoming in-development Game Pass competitor Project Spartacus is pretty close to actually launching, according to a journalist. Speaking on his premium Giant Bomb show Grub Snacks, paywall transcribed by VGC, VentureBeat's Jeff Grubb claimed to have obtained new information on Sony's yet-to-be-announced subscription service. It's probably getting pretty close to this actually launching. Something's probably going to happen by the end of this month, and I don't think that necessarily means publicly. I think in terms of the internal milestone of where the service needs to be, Grubb said. According to the journalist, Spartacus will be comprised of 3 tiers priced at up to $16 a month. Right now, they are called Essential, Extra, and Premium, Grubb claimed. The pricing again could be a placeholder, but the pricing is $10 a month for Essential, $13 a month for Extra, and $16 a month for Premium. Grubb went on to explain what he had heard players will get for each tier. For Premium, $16 a month, do you get full games? Not really, kind of. It's like EA Play, you get full game trials. I don't know if that's for every single game that comes out, but it seems like that, Grubb said. While PlayStation has offered game trials in the past for certain titles, Grubb implies that all PlayStation first-party titles could offer these trials are part of the premium tier. Grubb continued, you also get classic games and streaming. None of the other tiers will have cloud streaming. You also get classic games. He then expanded, I don't know what classic games means, but I do know that it's a major part of this premium tier. So you have game trials, classic games, and streaming on this premium tier. PlayStation has been the notable exception in recent years when it comes to providing access to its huge backlog on modern platforms. While Xbox Series users can play certain games from as far back as the original Xbox, the PlayStation 5 can only play PlayStation 4 titles natively. For the extra tier, you get a downloadable game catalog. Anything on PS Now that was downloadable seems like it would be here, which Grubb has heard includes over 250, 300 games, something like that. You don't get cloud streaming, but you do get 300 games you can download. So I personally think this creates a very interesting talking point when you look at the future landscape of gaming as a whole, as clearly we are seeing a shift from the traditional model of just release your games physically only and sell them at full price individually, and we are getting more of a library of games when you sign up for this subscription service type of model, very similar to what we've seen happen in the movies industry. I remember always thinking like, why did my parents pay so much for cable? Then I got out on my own. I signed up for Netflix and I was like, I only pay $15 a month. They're paying like $80 to $100 a month for cable. That seems ridiculous. Well, now I blink and in the year of 2022, I find myself paying about those same amounts for all of the various different streaming services I have, and it's becoming very prevalent, and clearly companies know that this is a safe, predictable revenue model, that they can say they have so many active subscribers every year, and they can report that to their investors, and they can continue to add value, market it, and push it as one of their primary leads on how they make money. Nintendo has been very successful with Nintendo Switch Online, and regardless of how you feel about the price point of that service right now, I do think we will continue to see this strategy implemented. And I'm saying this as a physical collector that will always collect games physically as long as I can, because obviously for long-term ownership, subscription models are just not the way to go, because one day, as we see with the recent announcements like the 3DS and eShop closing on the Wii U fronts, like we're not going to be able to have access to those games digitally long-term. So if you want to own your stuff, always pick up physical as long as possible. But we're even seeing issues with that, as sometimes now you buy a cartridge and only 1 of 3 games on a collection is on that cartridge, so you're then in the same scenario as you would be if you purchased it digitally. But I do think this is very interesting to see now Sony prop up themselves with their own subscription service. We already know what Microsoft is up to with their Game Pass service, and you have to ask the question, will Nintendo double down on Nintendo Switch Online as we go forward and continue to kind of create their own Disney Plus, because Nintendo is very much a Disney in the way that they have all of these classic back catalog of IPs that we all grew up with, and they are the only owner to all of these games, and they could easily continue to add into more libraries over the course of time We definitely need the Game Boy family of systems to hit the service at some point, which I think is pretty likely. And then hopefully one day we can talk about GameCube games, which I do think has to have a fundamental change in how the service runs, because we can't just stream them online like the same way Nintendo Switch Online works today. Hopefully it would be a download option similar to what we see on services like Game Pass and like this supposed Project Spartacus from Sony. But when you start to add in a library of games like GameCube in addition to N64, SNES, and NES, and then maybe one day we talk about somehow the Wii coming forward into that service, Nintendo definitely can compete at a high level, and they probably can create additional tiers that will cost even more either annually or monthly. And I think that that's ultimately where we see this go. I don't think that it means that physical games go away tomorrow or anything like that and subscription is all that's left, but I do think we're going to slowly see these subscription services become more and more of a prevalent model as companies just see the money on the table. Very easy to resell old products and then you never truly own them on the user end, and Nintendo just keeps receiving a check from us every single month. So regardless of where you fall in this issue, I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video in the comments down below about the gaming landscape going forward. What do you think about Project Spartacus and what it's going to have to offer with classic games, and how it's kind of looking like a Nintendo Switch Online competitor in a lot of ways? And how do you personally feel like the future of gaming is going to unfold? Do you think we get very subscription heavy like we see with the movies and music industry today? Or do you think that this is something that is a passing fad and that ultimately we will still be purchasing games individually for the most part for the foreseeable future? So I do look forward to hearing from you guys in the comments down below, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Make sure you check out yesterday's video if you haven't already, where we discussed Nintendo Switch Online and future N64 games that we could see announced around the corner as we quickly approach the end of officially announced N64 games that we know about so far. Also, make sure you please like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.